Chapter 2072. Yiqing Luo's words caused ripples in everyone's hearts. In the eyes of outsiders? Outsiders? Earlier when she said that Lung Fengying was barely friends with Yiqing Luo, it was from old Grand Madam. Yiqing Luo, this outsider, was she referring to? Old Grand Madam? Tiske, why did it feel that today's Three Springs sect patriarch succession ceremony wasn't as simple as what they had imagined? Somehow, the amount of information was a little too much. Lung Fengying stood up as he wasn't anxious nor impatient as he laughed warmly. My and Qing Luo's brotherhood had already been set when Qing Luo just entered the Heavenly Academy. You're my best brother, so how would I possibly force myself on you? His words were sincere and gentle. Especially when he spoke to Yiqing Luo, he used I to address himself, which meant that he had let go of his monarch position to interact with Yiqing Luo. Even if it was the previous Three Springs sect patriarch Yi Tianquang, he probably wouldn't receive such courteous treatment from the previous monarch. This was called barely treating Yiqing Luo as a friend? The two of them were obviously very good brothers. Not to mention a man and a woman, there was no such thing as pure friendship. Not to mention how the crowd didn't suspect that the so-called brotherhood between Yiqing Luo and Lung Fengying actually had a hidden meaning. With such an outstanding man like the Overlord around, the other men were all scum, all right? Unless Yiqing Luo was blind. Which was why she didn't want the Overlord to have an affair with Lung Fengying in the dark. So these two absolutely had a clean brotherhood relationship that couldn't be any cleaner. Yiqing Luo knew that right from the start when Lung Fengying entered the garden, he had lowered his stance and said in public that they were friends. But he wanted to make use of her current rallying power. Lung Fengying had just ascended the throne not long ago, whereas Yiqing Luo was now the West Continent's hero, a famous person in the West Continent. Only by borrowing Yiqing Luo's current power would he be able to stabilize his own position. This kind of use, if it was in the past, Yiqing Luo would have hated it. But, now that she was so cooperative, she also had her own plans. She curved her charming eyes as her gaze landed on the jade box which the eunuch was holding behind Lung Fengying. Following that, her face revealed a crafty smile. Then how can I see your sincerity? Lung Fengying took a look at eunuch behind him. The eunuch quickly stepped forward and raised the jade box high above his head with both hands. In a shrill voice, he said, in order to celebrate 7th Miss Ye's ascension as the new leader of the Three Springs sect, the monarch has specially presented this to 7th Miss Yi as a congratulatory gift. What congratulatory gift? Yiqing Luo raised her brows with a smile that didn't look like a smile. Lung Fengying narrowed his eyes as he acutely sensed that Yiqing Luo's reaction was a little strange. As though Yiqing Luo had long known what the congratulatory gift he had prepared was. He suppressed the strange feeling in his heart and waved his hand, indicating for his eunuch to open the jade box. The eunuch accepted the order and respectfully opened the jade box. The monarch has specially gifted the tiger emblem to the 7th Miss of the night to show his sincerity. The crowd burst into an uproar. Even the old ancestor could not sit still. Elder ancestor shuddered and slammed the table. She stood up abruptly and stared at the box in her eunuch's hand. What? Tiger tally? Monarch, how could you give such a precious thing to the tiger tally? That was something that could summon the Western Continent's royal army. He gifted the tiger talisman to Yiqing Luo. If Yiqing Luo had the intention to rebel, then she would be able to occupy the Western Continent in minutes. Was there something wrong with Monarch's brain? Everyone couldn't believe that Monarch actually took such a huge risk to gift the tiger tally to Yiqing Luo. Chapter 2073. Only one piece. That was already very heaven-defying, alright? 1 Three Springs sect and 200,000 imperial soldiers. If Yiqing Luo wanted to rebel, it was just a matter of minutes. Lung Fengying smiled warmly. Is Qing Luo satisfied with this sincerity? Yiqing Luo smiled lightly and nodded, satisfied. Lung Fengying gave him a look. The eunuch held the jade box and was about to step forward. Yiqing Luo smiled as she shook her head. Don't be in a hurry to send it over, everything shall wait till after the succession ceremony. Eunuch stopped in his tracks as he turned back to look at Lung Fengying. Seeing Lung Fengying nod his head, eunuch then kept the jade box and returned to Lung Fengying's side. Because Lung Fengying was expressing his sincerity, the atmosphere of the ceremony gradually livened up. After Yiqing Luo greeted everyone, the sound of a gong could be heard from the altar. The old man who was meditating like an old monk suddenly opened his eyes and shouted loudly, the auspicious time to worship the heavens has arrived. Young sect master, please move to the altar and carry out the heavenly worship ceremony. A deep voice suddenly exploded in the crowd like a clap of thunder. Everyone was shocked. Yiqing Luo picked her ears as she gave an impatient look at the elderly man as her lips twitched. "We're not far from each other, can't you lower your voice?" The old man was expressionless and extremely serious. "Young sect master, please move to the altar and carry out the heaven offering ceremony." Yiqing Luo's lips twitched. However, he still walked towards the altar. Behind him, the old ancestor leaned on his walking stick, his face dark and terrifying, his malicious eyes filled with a piercingly cold light. Watching as Yiqing Luo approached the altar step by step, the old ancestor seemed to be unable to restrain himself any longer and was about to charge forward. Lady Biming grabbed the elder ancestor's hand in time and said in a low voice, "Elder ancestor, please think twice before you act. Miss Seven is no longer the same as before. If the elder ancestor insists on stopping Miss Seven's succession ceremony and provokes Miss Seven's retaliation, the consequences will be unimaginable." The old ancestor's footsteps stopped. "Old ancestor, don't think about anything. Just quietly watch as seventh young mistress becomes the Three Springs sect's sect master. I can say with certainty that as long as seventh miss becomes the sect leader of the Three Springs sect, our Three Springs sect will definitely become the leader of the four great sects in the future." Biming knew the old ancestor's state of mind very well. Every word that he said was right into the old ancestor's heart. The elder ancestor gripped his walking stick tightly and finally sat back in his seat. Towards the small movements behind her, how could Yiqing Luo, who had an extremely strong sense of perception, not sense it? Hearing the sound of old grandmadam sitting down, Yiqing Luo laughed coldly in her heart. This Biming woman was truly intelligent. She had seen through everything so clearly. It was no wonder that such an intelligent woman could grasp the heart of the old ancestor so firmly within a short period of time when she was the head of the family. It was precisely because of Biming's intelligence. The Biming clan was also very smart and would not choose to become enemies with Yiqing Luo. He walked to the altar. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes and looked at the solemn old man beside her. This old man was an elder of the Three Springs sect. It was said that he had lived in the Three Springs sect for 500 years. Other than the important matters of the Three Springs sect, this sect elder would absolutely not appear. The Three Springs sect's sect master succession ceremony had always been presided over by the sect elder, the so-called heaven offering ceremony. And it was because of the legends regarding the four great sections. The four great sects were the legends of the god clan's tomb guardians. Therefore, the sect elder had to ask the heavens for an answer during the sect master's heaven offering ceremony. Chapter 2074. Yiqing Luo could feel it clearly. This sect elder was extremely disdainful towards her. Thinking of old grandmadam and the sect elder's attitude, Yiqing Luo was no longer surprised. It didn't matter whether they liked her or how they treated her. "Young matriarch, please take a step forward and raise the smoke to worship the heavens." Raising the smoke meant lighting the incense and kowtowing. Yiqing Luo stood in front of the altar and didn't move. The sect elder had already stuffed 3 incense sticks into Yiqing Luo's fingers. He immediately stretched out his hand and pressed Yiqing Luo's shoulder, trying to force her to kowtow. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she squinted her eyes in displeasure when the sect elder made his move. She was about to grab the sect elder's wrist. Suddenly, a loud boom sound was heard. From the sky, a majestic profound energy came straight towards Yiqing Luo's direction. The sect elder reacted swiftly. Just as he sensed the profound energy, he immediately let go of Yiqing Luo's shoulder and quickly retreated to avoid the profound energy attack. "Damn old man." Yiqing Luo cursed in her heart as her lips twitched with a sneer. Her 5 fingers moved and the glower flame fan opened up on her fingertips. A raging hurricane shot out from the glower flame fan. It collided with that profound energy attack. A loud "bam" was heard and Yiqing Luo directly used her overwhelming strength to fiercely suppress that oncoming profound chi back to where it came from. Ah! A scream was heard. A figure fell from the sky. Receiving the power of Yiqing Luo's hurricane and his own strength, that person had not lost his life. When he hit the ground, he suddenly flipped over and stabilized his body as he half knelt on the ground. A mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth. "Second young master." The lady's incredulous cry was heard from the high platform as Bei Mingshi staggered forward and knelt beside the person who sneaked an attack on Yiqing Luo. That person was none other than Yi Fengru. It was Yi Fengru who should be locked up in the palace's dungeon. Bei Mingshi held Yi Fengru's hand and cried out in fright, "Second young master, why did you do this? Today is 7th Mrs. Succession ceremony, how could you How could you? Bai Ming's palm warmed Yi Fengru's cold hand. His eyes, which were originally filled with hatred as he stared at Yi Qingluo, slowly shifted onto Bai Ming clan. He recognized the Bai Ming clan. The expression on his face softened a little. The viciousness in his eyes also faded a little. Mother? Yi Fengru said in a hoarse voice. Bai Ming's tears fell like rain. As a member of a large clan, as a concubine, she had no right to call her young master by his name, even if that young master was her own son. And her son could not call her mother in front of others. Now, hearing the word mother, Bai Ming's heart throbbed with pain. She held her son's hand tightly and said in a choked voice, "Son, listen to me, don't think about avenging Miss Z anymore." At the mention of the name Miss Z, Yi Fengru's body stiffened and his clear eyes were once again tainted with madness. He fiercely shook off Bai Ming clan as he stood up and stared at Yi Qingluo malevolently. "Yi Qingluo, you have no right to inherit this sovereign position. Get down from the altar." "Son." Bai Ming clan wanted to pounce forward. Yi Qingluo immediately moved and shifted to Bai Ming clan's side as she grabbed her arm. "Yi Fengru's condition is not right, don't go over, he might hurt you." Chapter 2075. Yi Qingluo narrowed her eyes as she looked at the hysterical and crazy Yi Fengru. She let go of Bai Ming's hand as her eyes remained calm. "Now it's not about whether I am willing to save him or not, but whether he is willing to let himself go. 7th Miss actually Ruer he. His nature is not bad, he is bewitched." How could Bai Ming not see her son's abnormal craziness? Yi Qingluo waved her hand. "Stand at the back." Bai Ming clenched her handkerchief tightly. But Ruer he. I promised you that I will give him a chance." Yi Qingluo glanced at Bai Ming indifferently. Bai Ming bit her lower lip as she chose to believe in Yi Qingluo. Now she could only choose to believe in Yi Qingluo. Bai Ming retreated to old grandmadame's side as she clenched her handkerchief nervously as she stared at Yi Fengru's direction worriedly. She ignored old grandmadame who was standing beside her as she heaved a sigh of relief. Old grandmadame's fingers which were holding onto her walking stick tightened. Her sinister eyes looked at Yi Fengru. She totally ignored Yi Fengru's craziness. Her eyes were even filled with joy as she rejoiced that Yi Fengru was here. "Yi Fengru, I don't care if you are pretending to be crazy or acting dumb or who bewitched you." Yi Qingluo's sweet voice was pleasant to listen to. But unfortunately her tone was cold like a cold current, penetrating into one's heart. Her expression was indifferent without any emotions. Everyone present felt a chill down their spines as an inexplicable chill rose from the bottom of their feet as they couldn't help but shiver. "Considering that the Bai Ming clan has spent some effort on Ziling and Little Yu, I can give you a chance." She walked slowly towards Yi Fengru's direction. "Either you put down your weapons now and find a place to sit at the guest seating area and finish this succession ceremony. Otherwise, I'll kill you now and continue with the succession ceremony." Her words were filled with a smile. But it still couldn't conceal the coldness in her words. Everyone sat upright, straightened their backs and looked down, indicating that they would only listen quietly and not disturb. Yi Fengru's crazed eyes were dyed with fiery flames. He stared fiercely at Yi Qingluo. His facial features were sinister and terrifying. "Yi Qingluo, I will absolutely not let Three Springs sect fall into the hands of an outsider. You're not a member of the Yi clan at all. What right do you have to become the sect master of the Three Springs sect?" He lifted his foot and stomped on the ground. Immediately, a strong wave of profound energy rippled out from the ground beneath his feet. As the hurricane blew, some light items and decorations were scattered all over the ground. Yi Fengru's words were like a stone thrown into a still pond. It set off layers upon layers of ripples. Those who came to participate in the Three Springs sect succession ceremony today were all famous and promising figures in the West Continent. There were even representatives from other continents who came to congratulate them. Yi Fengru's words shocked everyone present. An outsider? Yi Qingluo was an outsider? Yi Qingluo wasn't part of the Yi family? How was this possible? The whirlwind enveloped Yi Qingluo within it. Yi Qingluo didn't move. Her standing posture was languid and the expression on her face didn't show any signs of shock from Yi Fengru's words. She lightly raised her pink lips. "Oh? What evidence do you have to prove that I'm not from the Yi family?" Chapter 2076. Enough, Bai Ming, since second brother has already told us the truth, we don't need to hide anymore. Old grandmadame's aged voice interrupted Bai Ming's explanation. Bai Ming was stunned and turned to look at old grandmadame in disbelief. Old grandmadame stretched out her hand and pressed on Bai Ming's shoulder. Her malicious eyes flashed with a trace of strange cold light. That cold light made Biming's breath tighten. She pursed her red lips and did not dare to continue. Then, elder ancestor let go of her and slowly walked to the front of the high platform with the help of her walking stick. Everyone's eyes were focused on old Grand Madam. What old Grand Madam said just now had really disrupted everyone's train of thought. Could it be, Yiqing Luo was really not from the Yi family? Under everyone's hopeful gaze, old Grand Madam's hands rested on his walking stick as he cleared his throat and his gaze sunk as he looked at everyone present, sighing softly. What number 2 said is right, Yiqing Luo is indeed not a member of our Yi family. What? 7th Miss Yi is not from the Yi family? That is to say, 7th Miss Yi is not the young matriarch of Three Springs sect? How is that possible? How could Madame Yi not be from the Yi family? Her talent, her courage, and her strength. Except for the descendant of the Three Springs sect, one of the 4 major sects, only she could reach such a level. Who else could have such an advantage in cultivation? Old Grand Madam's words caused everyone present to express their disbelief. Amidst these incredulous questions and doubts, a different voice gradually emerged. To tell you the truth, I felt very strange just now. Old Grand Madam's attitude towards 7th Miss Yi is really totally not like how you treat your granddaughter. Yes, I have this feeling too. I just wanted to say that old Grand Madam does not seem to want 7th Miss Yi to inherit the position of patriarch. Old Grand Madam does not want Three Springs sect to fall into the hands of an outsider. If 7th Miss Yi is really not from the Yi family, then she indeed does not have the right to inherit the position of Three Springs sect's patriarch. Listening to the voices behind, it constantly stirred up the emotions of the surrounding people. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled into a cold arc of ridicule. She narrowed her eyes. She stared at those who doubted her qualifications to inherit the position of the sect master with a faint smile. These people, he looked very unfamiliar. Each of them looked to be in their 20s or 30s. There was an unconcealable hostility between his brows. It was obvious that his hands were stained with blood, and he was someone who lived on the edge of a knife. Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly as her lips curled into a ridiculing cold arc. She raised her eyes and looked at the old ancestor calmly and indifferently. I have to admit that the old ancestor's heart is really big. While watching the Three Springs sect fall, you still have to drag the younger generation into the abyss. She shook her head helplessly and clicked her tongue. The Yi clan must have done too many wicked things in their previous lives to have such an elder who cheats the younger generation like you. 7th girl. Old Grand Madam and Yiqing Luo exchanged glances, her voice still maintaining the old helpless tone. This old one just can't bear to see Three Springs sect, just like that, fall into the hands of outsiders. This old one must tell everyone about this matter. Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly, tisk. She knew that old Grand Madam would absolutely not let the patriarch succession ceremony go on smoothly so easily. Looking at the heartache and helplessness on the face of the old ancestor, could she use a sentence that was not appropriate but the meaning was similar, to express her own feelings? Chapter 2078. Yifengru was fearless. Alright, kill me, ha. Anyway, Xianxia has already died in your hands. I don't want to live alone. Suddenly, his expression turned cold and his tone changed. But, before I die, I will make all the shameless things that your shameless mother has done public. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold. Suddenly, streams of powerful airflow surged around her body, like a whirlpool rolling like a tide. At this moment, those bright and alluring eyes seemed to be dyed with a blood-red color. Yifengru's laughter stopped abruptly. He was extremely far away from Yiqing Luo. When Yiqing Luo's body was surrounded by one after another whirlpool, Yifengru was directly knocked away by that whirlpool. Yifengru's laughter stopped abruptly. His face turned extremely pale in an instant. Yiqing Luo's strength. It was so powerful that it was beyond his expectations. Heavens! 7th Miss Yi is a Sky Shen Supreme Master. What a powerful strength. Supreme Being Expert. Supreme Being. 7th Miss Yi seems to be only 15 years old, a 15-year-old Sky Profound Overlord. There is only one person in the world, only one. Has everyone forgotten that Miss Ye's 7th young lady has only just begun her cultivation this year? The whole audience was silent because of this sentence. That's right, how could they forget? In the past 15 years, Yiqing Luo was famous for being a waste. In other words, Yiqing Luo had cultivated from a waste to a Sky Profound Overlord in just a few months, in less than a year? F***ck. They wouldn't believe it even if they were beaten to death. They would rather believe in another folk legend. Yiqing Luo was actually pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger, hiding her true profound grade until she found the big backer, the overlord. Then she dared to boldly tell everyone about her strength. On this side, everyone was so shocked by Yiqing Luo that they couldn't regain their senses. The Baiming clan's face was pale, struggling to rush forward. "Seventh Miss, please have mercy," but she hadn't moved a step. However, old ancestor clutched her shoulders tightly. The force was so great that it seemed as if it wanted to dislodge her shoulders. Baiming struggled madly, his face twitching in pain. "Ancestor, I beg you to let me go. Ruer is my life, I can't lose him," no matter how much Baiming cried or screamed. Old ancestor kept a gloomy face and refused to let go of his hand no matter what. Under the pressure of the powerful dark force, Yifengru was forced to roll on the ground several times. His chest couldn't withstand such pressure, and he felt a metallic taste in his throat as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Yifengru propped himself up on a rockery in the garden and fiercely wiped off the blood at the corner of his mouth. He laughed heartily. "Yiqing Luo, don't tell me? You're not interested in your mother's matters? Do you know the reason why you were ostracized everywhere in the Yi clan?" He leaned against the fake mountain and panted heavily. He enunciated each word clearly, and his voice spread to every corner of the Three Springs sect with his profound qi. "Yiqing Luo, your mother is a fickle female prostitute. She was the legal wife in the Three Springs sect and was unwilling to be lonely, so she hooked up with men outside. In the end, she accidentally got pregnant. At that time, her father was in another continent and it had been more than 2 months. The pregnancy timing didn't match at all. Or perhaps, it's not that your brain has been caught in the door, but Yi Tianquang's brain has been caught in the door." Yi Fengru was left speechless. Everything that Yiqing Luo said was true and no one was able to refute it. Everyone came to a realization. That's right, if Yiqing Luo wasn't a member of the Yi family, Yi Tianquang would have long known that Yiqing Luo wasn't his biological daughter. Then why did he allow Yiqing Luo to be the young sect matriarch for so many years? Don't say anything, the young matriarch must be the first wife's daughter. Just take the point that Yiqing Luo was a waste without any cultivation foundation. Yi Tianquang had enough reason to choose a new young matriarch. But Yiqing Luo had been the young matriarch for a whole 15 years. Unless Yi Tianquang's brain had really been caught in the door. Chapter 2080. Yi Fengru didn't expect Yiqing Luo to be able to respond calmly at this moment. And her response made his words stuck in his throat. His face was ashen, and his scarlet and crazed eyes were wide open like copper bells. His whole body was taut and his muscles were distinct. After a long while, he squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth. "How would I know what father is thinking? But you are not from the Yi family, this is an indelible fact." Yiqing Luo raised her brows and sneered. The indifference on her face and the disdain in her eyes made the surrounding crowd believe Yiqing Luo's words without a doubt. Their gazes towards Yi Fengru were filled with suspicion. Old grandmadam didn't wait for Yiqing Luo to speak and said, "Seventh girl, what second brother said, is true. You are indeed not a child of the Yi family." She was the only elder in the Yi family and also the most senior elder. Her words were more convincing than Yi Fengru's. Old grandmadam swept a glance at everyone and sighed softly. "That year Tianquang didn't know that you are not his daughter, but eighth brother's birth. That year they thought that Yiqing Luo's mother was pregnant with Yiqing Luo, so they schemed to enter her courtyard. But after 8 months, Yiqing Luo's mother unexpectedly gave birth prematurely. The first to come out was Yiqing Luo. After Yiqing Luo was carried out by the midwife, they discovered that there was another child in her womb. But because it was a premature baby, Yi Fengyu's condition was very bad. After Yi Fengyu was born, he was on the verge of death as though he would die any time. This was the son of the Yi family. How could old grandmadam bear to let her son die at birth? More importantly, on the few young masters and young ladies of the Yi family, old grandmadam hadn't found one with the imprint of the future patriarch. This son might get the inheritance of the patriarch, the imprint of the god emperor. Hence, old grandmadam made use of the Yi family's ancestral forbidden art, hoping to use the blood of her twin sister, Yiqing Luo, to cast the forbidden art to save Yi Fengyu. But the forbidden art failed. Because Yiqing Luo's blood and Yi Fengyu's blood were totally incompatible. The two of them were not real siblings. This caused the old ancestor and Yi Tianquang to be endlessly shocked. He couldn't believe it. They were born from the same stomach, so why weren't they brother and sister? In the end, Yi Tianquang could only use his own blood as a primer to let the old ancestor use a forbidden technique to save Yi Fengyu's life. Yi Tianquang's blood could fuse with Yi Fengyu's, and the Yi clan's forbidden technique could also succeed. This was enough to prove that Yi Fengyu was Yi Tianquang's flesh and blood. There was no doubt about it. But Yi Fengyu and Yi Qingluo's blood could not merge. In other words, Yi Qingluo was not Yi Tianquang's flesh and blood. Chapter 2081. Everyone had long been brainwashed by Yi Qingluo's heroic feat of forcing the dark forces to retreat and saving the West continent from the abyss of suffering. No matter what old Grandmadam said, everyone's heart was still on Yi Qingluo's side. Immediately, one by one, they belittled the Yi family. It was simply unbearable to listen to. Old Grandmadam's face darkened bit by bit. Her breathing also became hurried at this moment. She suppressed the anger in her chest. To say this kind of thing in public not only let everyone ridicule Yi Tianquang for being cuckolded, it also let everyone ridicule the entire Three Springs sect. But now that things had come to this, she had no other choice. She would rather Three Springs sect become a laughing stock, and absolutely not willing to see Three Springs sect fall into the hands of an outsider. Old Grandmadam tightened her grip on the walking stick and coughed hard. A powerful pressure enveloped the entire garden in an earth-shattering manner. It also successfully suppressed the noise in the garden. Old Grandmadam cleared her throat, looking at everyone with a gloomy expression. How would I joke about such a thing? That day after I used the forbidden art, I suffered from the backlash and went into closed-door cultivation to recuperate for more than half a month. After I came out, I then found out Three Springs sect's matriarch's wife had long colluded with men outside secretly. As old Grandmadam spoke, her voice choked. Every word seemed to be filled with endless anger and helplessness. Yes, seventh girl came out from that woman's belly. Old eight also came out from that woman's belly. Tianquang had asked the midwife who delivered them and was indeed able to confirm this point. The only thing that can explain this point is that woman, during the month when Tianquang was not at home, she slept with other men and got pregnant. After that, when Tianquang came back, she schemed to lure him into her room and got pregnant again. Other than this explanation, there was no other way to explain this strange phenomenon. What was going on? Old Grandmadam still felt extremely strange when she recalled it. As for why you are the young matriarch of Three Springs sect, all this can only be clarified by asking your mother. Old Grandmadam's gaze looked towards Yi Qingluo. After Tianquang found out that you are not his biological daughter, he flew into a rage and wanted to kill you. It was your mother who stopped Tianquang. Your mother and Tianquang talked for 2 whole hours in the study room. In the end, Tianquang let you go and announced to the public that you were the young sect master of the Three Springs sect. Because of this, I have argued with Tianquang for a long time, but Tianquang's attitude was unyielding, so I could only compromise. The old ancestor paused, and a cold and complicated light flashed across her sinister eyes. Seventh girl, your mother is long dead now and Tianquang is also. I don't know what exactly they talked about in the study back then. After the old ancestor finished speaking, the entire garden was silent. No one spoke to break the silence at this moment. They started to look at Yi Qingluo as their eyes were filled with sympathy and pity. The old ancestor said it so clearly and clearly, regardless of whether it was real or fake. To Yi Qingluo this was a heavy blow. Yi Tianquang and Yi Qingluo's mother were already dead. No matter what the truth was, as soon as the old ancestor said those words, Yi Qingluo's identity, she would no longer be the 7th daughter of the Yi family and would no longer be able to have any connection with the Three Springs sect. Moreover, Yi Qingluo's past, it would also smear a stain on her life. Everyone sighed in their hearts. Chapter 2082. Everyone's thoughts were running wild. However, Yi Qingluo was still calm and there was no change in the expression on her face. She stood there lazily. The strong wind around her fluttered her fiery red dress. It made the beautiful woman look even more beautiful than before. After a while, the young lady's long eyelashes moved. Everyone's heart trembled along with him. They were guessing what method Yi Qingluo would use to retaliate. Yi Qingluo suddenly raised her eyes. Her long and narrow eyes were overflowing with color, as though it was decorated with thousands of stars, sparkling brightly. Her footsteps moved. Her figure flashed in front of everyone. Only an afterimage could be seen. Yi Qingluo's figure had appeared on the stage. She stood beside old Grandmadam, tilted her head and looked at old Grandmadam with a warm smile. Old Grandmadam, are you done? If you are, go to the back and sit down. Don't delay the auspicious time of the succession." The entire crowd was silent again. No one had expected this. After experiencing old grandmadame's words to draw a clear line between her and the Yi family, Yiqing Luo was still thinking about the patriarch's succession ceremony. Didn't she understand old grandmadame's intention? Or perhaps she wanted to play dumb and inherit the patriarch's position first? Old grandmadame was stunned. Yiqing Luo's reaction was really out of her expectations. After being stunned for a while, old grandmadame stared at the smiling young lady and said with a steely face, "Seventh girl, Three Springs sect doesn't belong to you, you can't force it." There was a hint of threat in her words. Yiqing Luo smiled sweetly, "But old grandmadame, what else do you think you can use to stop me?" Her eyes curved into crescents as she smiled, like a cunning fox. Between her brows, there was a teasing smile. "According to old grandmadame's story, since I'm not from the Yi family then, I don't need to respect the Yi family's elders," she said with a smile. "So, I must let the succession ceremony continue. How can old grandmadame stop me?" "You." The elder ancestor's expression turned ugly. "Even if you don't have the blood of the Yi family flowing in your body, you've grown up in the Yi family for the past 15 years. You've called me elder ancestor for 15 years. Yiqing Luo raised her eyebrows disapprovingly. So what? The girl's actions were clearly very normal. However, for some reason the old ancestor's heart tightened. Instinctively he took a step back. You want to destroy the Three Springs sect? Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning?" Old grandmadame's voice tightened as she stared at Yiqing Luo as she questioned angrily. "I don't have the blood of the Yi clan flowing in my veins, so even if I kill Yi Fengru and you, I won't be struck by lightning, right?" Yiqing Luo tilted her head as she laughed mischievously. She raised her hand and casually flipped her hair. Her every movement was extremely lazy and full of the charm of a young girl. Unbridled and flamboyant, she was like a poppy, making it impossible for anyone to take their eyes off her. Old grandmadame's expression instantly turned gloomy. "Yiqing Luo, today I'm here, don't you dare to snatch away the inheritance rights of Three Springs sect." Her sinister eyes swept towards the direction of her side. A white shadow flashed past. He saw the sect's elders standing in between Yiqing Luo and old grandmadame. Chapter 2083. Yiqing Luo raised her brows and smiled enchantingly. "Did I say that I want to participate in the worship process?" "You." The sect elder choked for a moment and straightened his face. "If you don't participate in the worship process, you can't proceed with the patriarch's succession ceremony. This is the rule set by the Three Springs sect ancestors." Yiqing Luo smiled even brighter. "I didn't say that I won't participate in the worship process." The sect elder's face sunk. "Yiqing Luo, are you toying with this elder?" Yiqing Luo glanced at him disapprovingly, insolently and arrogantly. "Teasing? What do you have that is worth me teasing you?" His blunt words caused the onlookers to roar with laughter. The sect elder's face was filled with gloomy clouds. His hands under his sleeves clenched into fists. It had been 100 years since anyone dared to speak to him in this manner. This young lady dared to be so insolent. Thinking of the supreme aura she released earlier, the sect elder's eyes were covered with a layer of coldness. At the age of 15 she had already stepped into the sky profound realm. She was indeed a rare genius in the world. If this young lady was from the Yi family, as the sect elder of Three Springs sect, he would be deeply gratified. But this young lady was not from the Yi family. This kind of talent would only bring misfortune to the Yi family. If they didn't eliminate the roots, it would bring endless harm to Three Springs sect. The sect elder's gaze towards Yiqing Luo was filled with murderous intent. This murderous intent was fleeting. But Yiqing Luo still sensed it. Yiqing Luo sneered in her heart and swept a disdainful glance at the sect elder. If the sect elder wanted to make a move on her, she didn't mind using the sect elder as a practice target. She could tell. This sect elder's profound grade was also in the sky profound realm. His grade was about 3rd or 4th grade. Although after the profound sky realm, the gap between each grade was as wide as the heavens. But Yiqing Luo felt that since it was a practice target, this difference was just right. But before that, she had to settle the sect leader's succession ceremony first. She walked past the sect elder and walked directly to the altar. "Sect elder, please don't waste everyone's time. Everyone here has come from their busy schedules to attend this succession ceremony. As the sect elder of the Three Springs sect, you are disgracing the name of the Three Springs sect by wasting everyone's time." The sect elder was so angry that he strode toward the altar. "I've said it before. You're not a descendant of the Three Springs sect. You have no right to inherit the Three Springs sect. He stretched out his hand wanting to stop Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo took a small step back and gave a low laugh. Sect elder, when did I say that I want to inherit Three Springs sect? The sect elder was taken aback. The onlookers were also stunned. It seemed like Yiqing Luo had indeed never mentioned that she was going to inherit Three Springs sect from the start. However, she had been urging the succession ceremony to continue. Wasn't he going to inherit the Three Springs sect? Yiqing Luo didn't bother about everyone's dazed gazes. Her hand, facing a certain point in the sky, opened up slightly. The young lady stood against the light. Her beauty was not as arrogant and wanton as before. Instead, there was a kind of extremely gentle warmth. That pair of wanton and devilish charming eyes. At this moment, it was filled with a deep smile. The smile on her red lips was bright and radiant. Such a Yiqing Luo. It was everyone's first time seeing it. Their hearts were inexplicably agitated. The young lady's fair jade-like hands slipped out from her sleeves. Slender fingers stretched towards the sky. Chapter 2084. Everyone was dumbfounded. Who was Yiqing Luo talking to? Future patriarch? Wasn't she talking to herself? Everyone looked towards the direction where Yiqing Luo stretched out her hand. They saw a dazzling ray on the horizon, adding a gorgeous color to the entire sky. Carrying a majestic and powerful force, it descended from the sky. That was a leopard beast with shiny black fur. The leopard beast's body was extremely sturdy, about 3 to 4 times the size of an ordinary leopard beast. A pair of black eyes, extremely vigilant with a strong warning color. Dong. The black leopard beast landed on the ground. For huge leopard claws stepped out 4 strong air currents. The dust on the ground stirred up, a hurricane suddenly arose. The sharp claws that stepped on the ground like a sharp blade, shining with a sharp luster. And the most shocking thing was, it was the 2 people sitting on the back of the leopard beast. A man and a woman. When the leopard beast stabilized its footsteps, it proudly swept its eyes around, after confirming that there was no danger. The leopard beast slowly crouched down, lowering its body. 2 figures slowly came down from the leopard beast. The young man was dressed in a navy blue luxurious brocade robe, his black hair neatly tied up, secured by a white jade crown. His figure looked somewhat slender but also tall and slender. Perhaps it was because of this period of experience. Or perhaps it was because of the dignified and noble clothes on him. The young man's entire aura had an earth-shaking change. His aura was fully unleashed, dignified and luxurious. Behind the youth was a young girl dressed as a plain-colored servant girl. Although she was a servant girl. But looking at the pace that followed the young man, steady and powerful. Graceful figure, thousands of postures. No matter how one looked, she was definitely not an ordinary servant girl. Just these 2 people, the moment they appeared, attracted everyone's attention. Old Eighth. When old Grand Madam saw that young man, a trace of disbelief immediately surfaced on her dark face. She stood up abruptly with the help of her walking stick, her body swaying, extremely shocked. Old Grand Madam. Yi Fengyu cupped his hands, respectfully bowing in the direction of old Grand Madam. Neither servile nor overbearing attitude made old Grand Madam stagger a step back. Lady Biming supported him in time, unable to believe her own eyes. This young man, a young man with such a majestic and powerful aura, was Yi Fengyu. The youngest of the Yi clan. Yi Fengyu. Yi Fengyu didn't wait for old Grand Madam's reaction as he withdrew his hand and walked straight towards Yiqing Luo. When he saw Yiqing Luo, Yi Fengyu's youthful face finally revealed a smile that resembled that of a child. Sister. He called out in a daze, his heart full of excitement. Yiqing Luo walked in front of him. A 15-year-old boy was at the age of growth. The current Yi Fengyu was 2/3 taller than Yiqing Luo's head. Yiqing Luo had to raise her head to look at him. Xiaoyu, go ahead. Yiqing Luo smiled as she caressed Yi Fengyu's head, her eyes filled with warmth. Yi Fengyu nodded vigorously. The young man with a majestic aura in front of everyone just now. The minute he stood in front of Yiqing Luo, he became the little brother next door. Anyone could tell that the relationship between Yiqing Luo and Yi Fengyu was extremely deep. Yiqing Luo put her hands behind her back, tilted her head and looked at the sect elder with a smile that didn't look like a smile. Sect elder, Xiaoyu is the direct bloodline descendant of Three Springs sect. Do you have any objections to let him inherit the position of sect master? The sect elder had been in closed-door cultivation for such a long time, he didn't know much about the outside world. listening to Yiqing Luo's words. Chapter 2085. The position of the Three Springs Sect's sect leader was not something that could be easily inherited. Who told Yiqing Luo that as long as she was a descendant of the Three Springs Sect, she would be able to inherit the position of sovereign? How could an immature child inherit the position of the sect master? The sect elder's face darkened. Of course, even if you have any opinions, it has nothing to do with me. The sect elder had just spat out 2 words when he was covered by Yiqing Luo's disapproving voice. The voice of the sect elder was stuck in his throat. He couldn't go up or down. His face turned red. Yiqing Luo continued to smile. Old grandmadam, do you have anything else to say now? The old ancestor's eyes were filled with shock as he stared at Yi Fengyu, unable to recover for a long time. She remembered. After Yi Qingqian led the remnants of the dark forces and joined hands with Yi Fengru to invade Three Springs Sect. As Yiqing Luo's biological brother who had always been doted on, Yi Qingjian vented her anger on Yi Fengyu. Yi Fengyu's situation was extremely miserable. She had always thought that Yi Fengyu had died in Yi Qingqian's hands. Unexpectedly, not only did Yi Fengyu not die. On the contrary, he was no longer like a child who couldn't grow up. Instead, he was extremely dignified and capable of shouldering great responsibilities. The old ancestor's heart trembled fiercely. No. I, as an elder of the Three Springs Sect, nominate Old Eighth as the new sect leader. The old ancestor stared at Yi Fengyu, his voice trembling. Yi Fengyu was a direct descendant of the Three Springs Sect. Yi Qingqian was no longer considered as a member of the Three Springs Sect. Yi Fengru, his appearance was neither human nor ghost. He also had the infamy of killing his own father and forcing the abdication of the throne. He had also joined an underworld power. His reputation had long since been ruined. Now, only Yi Fengyu could shoulder this great responsibility. Even if Yi Fengyu wasn't mature enough. As a grandmother, she could still live for a few more years. She could assist Yi Fengyu and help him grow faster. Furthermore, Yi Fengyu had Yiqing Luo as his backing. Yiqing Luo was going to inherit the position of sovereign. The old ancestor couldn't accept it at all. She had been resisting the urge to stop Yiqing Luo. It was because, only by keeping the secret that Yiqing Luo wasn't a member of the Yi family. To make Yiqing Lu the patriarch of Three Springs Sect. Only then could the Three Springs Sect's reputation be stabilized, and only then could the Three Springs Sect return to its rightful status and nobility. In fact, it was just as the Baiming clan had said. Yiqing Luo had the ability to lead Three Springs Sect to become the leader of the 4 major sects. Therefore, the elder had been suppressing the unwillingness in his heart. Now, the successor was a member of the Yi family. Furthermore, he could make use of Yiqing Luo's power and reputation. This was the best of both worlds. How could the old ancestor have any objections? No. I don't agree. The sect elder's face darkened. Had it been too long since he, the sect elder, appeared in the Three Springs Sect, causing the current Three Springs Sect to be so disrespectful? He felt that his dignity as the leader of a sect had been trampled on by a junior. If he allowed these juniors to be arrogant and decide everything for the Three Springs Sect, he would be doomed. Then why would he, as an elder of the sect, come here? The more the sect elder thought about it, the angrier he got. How can you be so perfunctory when it comes to inheriting the patriarch's position? Changing this and that, is it a joke for you to assume the position of Three Springs Sect's patriarch? He frowned and shot a sharp glare at old ancestor. We haven't seen each other for decades and you've become muddle-headed? Chapter 2086. The sect elder snorted coldly. The previous patriarch knew that Yiqing Luo was not a descendant of the Yi family, but still insisted on making her the young matriarch of Three Springs Sect. This really makes me doubt if the current Yi family still has the ability to inherit the patriarch position. He paused and stared sharply at old grandmadam. So, I have decided to stay in Three Springs Sect for a few months, to investigate carefully, among the remaining descendants of Three Springs Sect, who is the most suitable person to become the future patriarch. This. Old grandmadam's face was ashen. She wanted to stop him but didn't know how. Listening to the sect elder. Apparently he had made up his mind. The sect elder flicked his sleeves and said coldly, "There's no need to say anything, I have made up my mind. Today's patriarch succession ceremony shall." Hee. A contemptuous laughter, extremely ethereal. That laughter was as clear as pearls falling on a plate, extremely pleasant to the ears. But at the same time it was pleasant to the ears. Bursts of sound rippled in the ears, giving off a strange feeling. Even the sect elder couldn't help but have goosebumps all over his body. Old grandmadam, it actually doesn't matter if there is this sect elder in the patriarch succession ceremony. Yi Qingluo's voice was arrogant and presumptuous. She slowly walked to the front of Yi Fengyu and looked at the sect elder with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Old grandmadam was stunned and quickly understood the meaning of Yi Qingluo's words. Wasn't Yi Qingluo's arrogance a little too much? Even if Yi Qingluo was already a Sky Profound cultivator. But after all, she had just stepped into Sky Profound first grade not too long ago, and was still not adept at controlling her profound energy. How could she go against the sect elder who had lived for 500 years? She thought that she didn't care about the sect elder's opinion. Could this succession ceremony really ignore the existence of the sect elder? Old grandmadam wanted Yi Fengyu to become the new patriarch. But she didn't dare to disobey the sect elder in front of him, and didn't dare to go against the sect elder back then. Hearing Yi Qingluo's question, the grand elder could only remain silent. When the sect elder heard that, he was so infuriated that his white beard stubble puffed up. Yi Qingluo, since you're not a descendant of Three Springs sect, then Three Springs sect's internal affairs have nothing to do with you. Now get off the stage for this elder. Yi Qingluo tilted her head and looked at him. Someone who hasn't appeared in the past few decades and has never been in charge of Three Springs sect, do you think you're qualified to say this? As she spoke, she looked at the sect elder with a disdainful smile. In recent years, the Three Springs sect's reputation has been declining. It's not only the imperial family who can easily cause trouble in the Three Springs sect. Even the servants of the other 4 great profound practitioner clans and clans dare to cause trouble in the Three Springs sect. The Three Springs sect had become a joke. Where were you at that time? Yi Qingluo's voice was very low. There was even a hint of laughter in his voice. When she said the last word, the sound of her voice fell. The entire garden was extremely quiet. The sect elder was also stunned and did not speak for a long time. When he came back to his senses, his face was red with shame and indignation. He couldn't believe that he was provoked by a junior to the point where he couldn't resist at all. His face was ashen as he replied angrily, "The Three Springs sect's reputation has declined. That's because of the previous sect leader's ability and the way he handled things. There's a huge problem. What does all of this have to do with me?" Chapter 2087. Yi Qingluo raised her brows, her long and narrow eyes rippled with ridicule. But Three Springs sect's reputation has dropped, their status has plummeted, no matter which force it is, they can easily step on us. Her slender fingers touched her chin, her eyes curved. What's the difference between this and Three Springs sect heading towards destruction? The sect elder's face turned gloomy, his fists were clenched. You are talking nonsense. Looking at the past few days, Yi Qingqian led the dark forces to invade Three Springs sect, and made Three Springs sect become the assistants of the dark forces to invade the West Continent, almost destroying Three Springs sect's illustrious reputation. Yi Qingluo looked at the sect elder smilingly, but at that time, elder? Where were you? You. The sect elder squeezed out a word from between his teeth, but couldn't spit out the next word. The crowd expressed that the amount of information was getting more and more explosive. Everyone looked at the sect elder with despise and disdain. In the past, the sect elder didn't appear anywhere. He carried the Three Springs sect's glory, and was a rare sky mystic overlord in Nirvana realm. No matter where he went, he would be envied and respected by everyone. Since when did people look at him with disdain and disdain? The sect elder bellowed, "Yi Qingluo, you are an outsider, what right do you have to judge me? Based on the fact that Three Springs sect was revived in my hands." Yi Qingluo replied arrogantly. Sharp arrogance was released from Yi Qingluo's body without any concealment. The powerful and majestic aura overshadowed the sect elder's aura with absolute suppression. Yi Qingluo raised her head, her brows were filled with a lazy expression, but in her eyes, there was a gleam of brilliance, overflowing with youth. "Sect elder, when Three Springs sect was in dire straits, you never appeared. To me it really doesn't matter whether Three Springs sect has a sect elder or not." Yi Qingluo didn't give any face to the sect elder. The young lady's devastatingly beautiful face was calm without any ripples. The long and narrow eyes were supposed to be enchanting and charming. However, the girl's aura was so cold and piercingly cold. The sect elder staggered a few steps back. His pair of flustered eyes stared at Yi Qingluo in disbelief. He was so angry that he was trembling all over. His face was as black as charcoal. "Yi Qingluo, you've become a sky mystic overlord at such a young age and you think you're so great that you can be lawless? The sect elder knew that there was no chance of winning if he were to bicker with this young lady. He sneered and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. "I must teach you a lesson on behalf of the Yi family, you silly little girl who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth." Yiqing Luo spat out a pooey. Was there a hole in the head of this sect elder? She kept saying that she was not a descendant of the Three Springs sect and had no right to interfere with the internal affairs of the Three Springs sect. And now he was saying that he would teach her a lesson on behalf of the Yi clan? Didn't he find these words contradictory? Not waiting for Yiqing Luo to complain in her heart, the sect elder's attack had already arrived. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as she speedily retreated backwards, avoiding his attack. Chapter 2088. Tisk, so this is the so-called sect elder. I've learned something new today. After living for hundreds of years, he's only in the sky profound stage. Our boss Qing Luo had only cultivated for a few months and she's already in the sky profound stage. No wonder this old man is jealous of our boss Qing Luo. Relying on the fact that he's lived for hundreds of years, to bully a junior who had just started cultivating, this is the style of a sect elder. All sorts of ridicule were heard from the surroundings. The representatives from various powerhouses shook their heads in disgust. To the sect elder, what kind of humiliation was this? The second wave of attack which was launched towards Yiqing Luo was completely frozen. There was no way for them to continue. However, among the crowd there was another wave of voices. What the sect elder said isn't without reason. Since Yiqing Luo is not the descendant of Three Springs sect, then she has no right to ask about Three Springs sect's matters. Who knows who the new patriarch of Three Springs sect is? It's not Yi 7th Mrs. A wrong it should be. Yiqing Luo, and it's not her turn to make the decision. Who knows Yiqing Luo and Yi family's 8th young master's close relationship? If Yi family's 8th young master becomes Three Springs sect's patriarch, it's no different from Yiqing Luo becoming Three Springs sect's patriarch. The scene instantly became extremely chaotic. Due to the crowd's gossip, the sect elder could only swallow his anger. He had never expected this. The representatives who had always been fighting in the open and in the dark, contending for supremacy, they actually worked together for Yiqing Luo? Yiqing Luo totally didn't care about the outside world's discussions. She stretched out her hand and grabbed Yi Fengyu's wrist, pulling him to the front of the altar. Little you worship the heavens. Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered to waste time with those people. The most important thing now was to let Yi Fengyu finish the inheritance ceremony and return to the Mu family to recuperate. Yi Fengyu's injuries had not fully recovered. He needed at least another half a month to recuperate. This was the best outcome after Ghost Doctor had treated Yi Fengyu's injuries. Xiao Qin did not know how long Yi Fengyu's willpower could hold out during the succession ceremony. Presumptuous. What right do you have to preside over the ceremony? The sect elder gnashed his teeth and roared. Off to the side, Yi Fengru furiously roared, "Bastard! Yiqing Luo, you're just a slut. You're exactly the same as that shameless mother of yours, little bastards born of cheap mothers. Don't even think about making Yi Fengyu the sect leader of the Three Springs sect. I will never agree." Suddenly he leaped up. It turned into a black afterimage, stirring up waves of air that surged in the air. In the air, Yiqing Luo could vaguely smell a strange smell. Her expression changed and she quickly took out 2 pills from her fingertips. One of them slipped into Yi Fengyu's mouth. One of them slipped into Shiju's mouth. At the same time, the onlookers suddenly fell down one by one. The air was gradually covered with a layer of black smoke. Poison. He poisoned us. The onlookers reacted and immediately covered their mouths and noses. However, no matter how hard they tried not to breathe, the feeling of powerlessness from being poisoned would still corrode their entire bodies. In the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, everyone present were either sprawled on the ground or on their seats. The only people who were standing were Yiqing Luo and Yi Fengyu, who had unknowingly sat on Shiju's back and leapt into mid-air. "Bastard! Today you won't be able to escape even if you have wings." Yi Fengru laughed maniacally. In his hand was a black bottle. He stared vigilantly at Yiqing Luo. However, a red shadow flashed before his eyes. Before he could even react, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest. A burst of profound energy slapped onto his chest. He moved his fingers and quickly tried to open the other bottle. But before he could do anything, Yiqing Luo's fingers had already grabbed onto his wrist. With several cracking sounds, Yi Fengru let out a pained scream. His entire face was contorted in pain. "You deserve to die, do you know that?" Yiqing Luo smiled faintly. Under that charming smile, bit by bit, she broke Yi Fengru's hand. The bottle in his hand fell into Yiqing Luo's hand. Chapter 2090. Yi Fengru was horrified. But he didn't even have the strength to struggle. He could tell that Yiqing Luo hadn't released her full strength. But even if she didn't use her full strength, she did the same to him. He didn't even have the strength to resist. How strong was this slut? Yi Fengru couldn't figure it out. Although Yiqing Luo's mother was also a cultivator, but she was just a weak girl who only knew how to rely on Yi Tianquang. How could she give birth to such a pervert like Yiqing Luo? Pa! The crisp sound of a slap resounded through the quiet garden. Yiqing Luo's slap landed on Yi Fengru's face. Her expression was cold, her charming eyes were suffused with a trace of coldness. Yi Fengru, if you insult my mother again, I will give you a slap or give you a punch. In the end, she added another sentence, curse in your heart, I will still hit you. Yi Fengru's face was swollen, blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth. He stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo, his eyes filled with hatred. She could hear him cursing in his heart? I can't hear you, but from your appearance it seems like you are cursing me, cursing my mother, so I will hit you. Yiqing Luo smiled, completely unreasonable. Immediately, she raised her hand and slapped the other side of his face. I think you are cursing me in your heart again. *CK. Yi Fengru's ears were ringing from the slap, his cheeks were burning with pain. He cursed through gritted teeth. Yiqing Luo raised her brows, smiling. But her slender little hand, clenched into a fist, unceremoniously punched his stomach, fiercely. Yi Fengru screamed, only feeling that his abdomen was pierced through, his internal organs seemed to be ruptured. His whole body fell straight to the ground. Yiqing Luo tilted her head and looked at him with a sneer. Didn't you think you can be arrogant after poisoning me? Come on, continue to be arrogant for me to see? Yi Fengru had no strength to move. Both his hands were broken by Yiqing Luo. Under Yiqing Luo's earlier punch, the slightest movement of her internal organs would cause a heart-wrenching pain. He couldn't move. He didn't dare to move. Hearing Yiqing Luo's words, he forced his eyes open. He had lost too much blood and the pain was unbearable. He could no longer see the scene in front of him clearly. In his haze, he could only see the red-clothed girl standing in front of him. Her eyes were filled with mockery as she stared at him unblinkingly. All of a sudden, Yi Fengru felt as if something was tugging at his heart. It looked like it was trying to grab onto something. But in the next instant, his vision went black. Something surged in his mind. When his eyes regained clarity, once again, another slender and delicate figure appeared in front of him. This was xianxia. Yi Fengru's cloudy eyes gradually emitted a black stream of air. His lips trembled slightly. He kept repeating the word, xianxia. He saw xianxia. He saw xianxia's tragic death. He saw Yiqing Luo standing beside xianxia who was being devoured by the poisonous worms, laughing out loud and wantonly. The black energy in his eyes grew thicker. The malevolent expression on his face became more and more twisted and terrifying. Yiqing Luo, don't be complacent too early. This time round, the winner is still uncertain. Yi Fengru didn't know where the strength came from, but he suddenly slammed his palm on the ground. His body was like an arrow leaving the bow, scurrying into mid-air. Boom, boom, boom. At the same time, a few deafening energy fluctuations were heard, enveloping the entire garden. Chapter 2091. Gravel splattered and dust billowed. The various powerhouses' representatives who had fallen onto the ground due to being poisoned were covered with tiny wounds after being splattered by those gravel. Some of the stronger powerhouses' representatives regained their consciousness under this kind of piercing pain. They wanted to avoid it, but the feeling of powerlessness made them unable to move at all. So it's like this. The young lady's clear voice, which seemed to be in deep thoughts, was transmitted into everyone's ears. The various powerhouses' representatives mustered up their last breath and looked towards the direction of the voice. Under the encirclement of gravel and dust, they saw a young lady dressed in red, still standing on the high stage, raising her head and looking towards a certain direction in the sky. It was Yiqing Luo? It was her. She was fine. She wasn't poisoned like them. Everyone's hearts inexplicably calmed down. As long as Yiqing Luo was still around, they would definitely be fine. Not knowing why, the other party was obviously a 15-year-old young lady, but they had developed such a strong reliance on this 15-year-old young lady. Swish, 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 accompanied by gravel splattering, the sound of the ground shaking. They saw the surroundings of the garden which had been leveled to the ground, as cultivators dressed in black night clothing scuttled out. One after another there were at least 100 over people. Surrounding the high stage which Yiqing Luo was standing on, tightly encircled. And those 30 to 40 people who had originally fallen onto the ground, also climbed up. They laughed maniacally as they walked behind Yi Fengru, as they stared at Yiqing Luo viciously, as though they were looking at the meat on the chopping board. Yiqing Luo recognized these people at one glance. Weren't they the bunch who kept singing a different tune to the crowd, trying to incite the crowd's rhythm, and kept humiliating Yiqing Luo? Yi Fengru laughed loudly, and as he laughed he coughed violently. Even after coughing out blood he still couldn't stop laughing. Yiqing Luo, did you really think that I didn't have any tricks up my sleeves? So what if they are sky mystic overlords? Against them can you still survive? Yiqing Luo didn't respond to Yi Fengru's words. She narrowed her eyes as she carefully sized up the rows of black-robed men in front of her, who were obviously well-trained. This sizing up made Yiqing Luo had a huge shock. These killers, over 100 of them, were all Earth Mystic grade and above. The highest profound rank has already reached the 8th level of the Earth Profound rank. Where did these experts come from? Yiqing Luo had long guessed that it was impossible for Yi Fengru to come to the succession ceremony alone. The group of murderous killers who were constantly singing a different tune were Yi Fengru's men. But what Yiqing Luo did not expect was, apart from the group of assassins in the field, and there were so many teams with such powerful strength, it was impossible for Yi Fengru to find so many powerful helpers. Behind him, someone must be helping him. Or perhaps, it was exploitation. Profound practitioners of the Earth Profound realm. In the Nirvana realm, he could be said to be the target of all the major forces and clans. That person was able to train so many Earth Shen practitioners into such a well-trained team. From this, it could be seen that the strength of that person could not be underestimated. Yiqing Luo vigilantly searched for the leader among the 100 of them. However, he swept his gaze across everyone. He didn't see anyone who looked like the boss. Chapter 2092. This time round, the historians won't be coming. Yi Fengru gave an eerie sneer. Of course, if you still have the ability and unleash the power which exceeds Nirvana realm's limit, then there's a possibility to summon the historians. His reply made Yiqing Luo's heart shiver. Her question just now was just a test. She really managed to find out the truth. These were all Earth Profound cultivators and above, not people from Nirvana realm. They came from Nirvana realm and above, a certain realm cultivator. Previously from Old Man Tsang Dmo Xian and Yi Qian and the others, Yiqing Luo had a rough understanding of the different realms' levels. Nirvana realm should be the lowest realm among all the realms. Those realms outside of Nirvana realm, such as the Dark Forces, Godless Island and the Upper Realm etc. The combined power of these places was much higher than Nirvana realm by many times. These 100 over black-robed men were not from Nirvana realm, and were all Earth Profound cultivators, so she wasn't surprised at all. But she wasn't surprised. She was curious. Curious which realm these people were from outside of Nirvana realm. The only thing she was sure of was, these 100 over people were absolutely not from the Dark Forces. They didn't have the profound yin qi from the Dark Forces on them. The only common point with the Dark Forces was, these black-robed men's imposing manner was the same as the Dark Forces, disgusting. Yiqing Luo even probed out a question. Yi Fengru knew that she was unable to use the power of her profound jade heart. More accurately, he knew that her profound energy was obstructed. He knew that she couldn't release the power which could attract the Heaven Dao Law. Looked like these people had done a thorough investigation on her. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes slightly as her lips curled into a teasing cold arc, raising her brows at Yi Fengru. Your preparation work is so sufficient, looks like you've made up your mind to deal with me. Yi Fengru sneered. At least you know your own limits. He knew Yiqing Luo's sinister and cunning. Dragging the time would definitely give her a chance to turn the tables. He bellowed furiously, all of you go kill Yiqing Luo. The rest of you follow me to kidnap all these old fogies away. Those killers who were originally mixed in with the guests laughed sinisterly as they raised the weapons in their hands, charging towards Yiqing Luo. Immediately following that, those 100 over Earth Profound cultivators also unleashed their valiant imposing manner as they surrounded Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo could tell from these people's attacks earlier. The Earth Shen experts of the Nirvana realm were not on the same level as these people. Their battle techniques, attack speed, and aura far surpassed those of the Nirvana realm. Over 100 people swarmed forward. Even if she was a Sky Shen supreme martial artist, she would not be able to hold on for long. Sister! Yi Fengyu shouted in panic. He was just about to ride on Shiju and rush down. A beam of dark light blocked his way. Yi Fengru's malevolent face appeared in front of Yi Fengyu. My good eighth brother, we've never crossed hands before. Today, second brother shall see, after not seeing you for so many days, just what kind of realm has eighth brother grown to. Yi Fengru's palm wind moved, as an irresistible profound energy directly pressed down on Yi Fengyu's face. Yi Fengyu's expression congealed as his legs tightened on Shiju, as he backhanded a palm strike. Both palms met as the air instantly exploded into bursts of profound waves. Chapter 2093. Yi Fengru looked at Yi Fengyu in astonishment. You're already at the Earth Profound Realm? Yi Fengyu's face was a bit pale. He placed one hand on Shiju's back and tried hard to adjust his breathing. Second brother, not everyone is standing in the same spot. No matter what happens, you should look forward. If you keep binding yourself and living in the past, you will never be able to walk out. He was hinting at something. Yi Fengru naturally understood. After second brother kills that little slut Yi Qingluo, second brother will look forward properly. Yi Fengru's eyes were covered with black qi, a piercingly cold light flashed. He pounced at Yi Fengyu again. Yi Fengyu furrowed his brows and suppressed the discomfort in his body. He evaded Yi Fengru's attack. Second brother, don't be so stubborn. Don't you know that you're not only destroying yourself, you're also destroying the Three Springs sect? Without xianxia, I have lost everything. Other than xianxia, I don't want anything else. It would be even better if they were destroyed. Destroying it is even better. Yi Fengru howled madly. Yi Fengyu's complexion became increasingly pale. Even his lips had become sickly pale. Yi Qingluo, who was surrounded by over 100 top exponents, started to find it strenuous. The problem with the profound heart jade caused her profound strength to only be able to be controlled at the border of the sky profound realm. A profound sky sovereign expert did indeed have the ability to fight against 100. However, facing these high-level profound practitioners that came from other planes, even if she could release the power of her profound jade heart without restraint, she might not be able to gain the slightest bit of advantage in the hands of these 100 or so people. Not to mention that his strength was currently being suppressed by the profound jade heart. Yi Qingluo's situation was getting more and more dangerous. Too many things had happened recently. Yi Qingluo didn't even have the time to refine the pills. Because of this, the returning Heaven Yuan Serene Grass pill was not refined. The few sacred beasts in her family were still in a state of growth. Now only Shiju was able to fight. However, Shiju was protecting Yi Fengyu. Could it be, asking Old Man Song to appear and help? Yi Qingluo pursed her pink lips, her heart was in a tangle. She was still unable to identify the origins of these people. If they rashly let Old Man Song appear, once he attracted the attention of these people, the secret of the Azure Dew bracelet might not be able to be kept. Bang! Just as Yi Qingluo was pondering over this, a person's weapon had already landed right in front of her. In front of Yi Qingluo, there was a flash of saber light and sword shadows. Yi Qingluo flicked her fingers and the glower flame fan collided with that weapon. Kacha! The man's weapon broke. Sharp wind blades shot out from the glowing flame fan and sliced through the neck of the attacker without any hesitation. Yi Qingluo didn't stop at all as a thick profound energy burst forth from the glower flame fan, forcing those people who were surrounding her to retreat. She got a chance to catch her breath and looked up at the two figures flying in the sky. Yi Fengyu rode on Shiju, constantly fighting with Yi Fengru. No, to be more precise, Yi Fengyu didn't actually try to kill Yi Fengru. Although his attacks were fierce, he only had the thought of knocking Yi Fengru out, not taking his life. On the contrary, Yi Fengru's every attack was fatal. After all, Yi Fengyu's temperament was still immature. He still couldn't kill his own brother. What's more, the injuries on his body had not yet healed. When he crossed hands with Yi Fengru, he was at a disadvantage. As expected. Just as Yi Qingluo was worried about Yi Fengyu, Yi Fengru suddenly flashed and shifted behind Yi Fengyu. Chapter 2094. Little Yu. Yi Qingluo suddenly jumped up, her fingertips quickly shot out the glower flame fan like a spiral. Yi Fengyu immediately turned around, only to see Yi Fengru's blade coming down. Clang! Just as the blade was within a fist's distance, the glower flame fan was like a burning fire elf, colliding with that long blade. Yi Fengru only felt his arm go numb, the long blade fell to the ground. Yi Fengyu quickly retreated on Shiju. The feeling of picking his life back from the edge of death made him gasp for breath. Luckily his sister saved him. Thinking of his sister, Yi Fengyu immediately lowered his head to look at Yi Qingluo's direction. This look Yi Fengyu's pupils suddenly constricted. Yi Qingluo then jumped up and threw the glower flame fan in her hand towards Yi Fengyu. His back was exposed in front of the group of black-clothed men. How would the black-robed men let go of such a good opportunity? Immediately one by one flocked forward, the profound chi waves in the air, gradually forming a twisted ripple. The moment Yi Qingluo threw out the glower flame fan, she reacted quickly, trying to avoid the black-robed men who sneak attacked from behind. But no matter how fast she was, because of the action of throwing out the glower flame fan, she was a step too slow. Swoosh, the blade light grazed her back. Her robe was cut, a bright red blood mark appeared on Yi Qingluo's fair skin. Yi Fengyu's eyes widened, roared out, "Sister!" Yi Qingluo groaned, knitted her brows and raised a palm wind. The palm was strong like a surging wave, roaring angrily towards the group of sneak attackers. The black-robed men screamed, fell to the ground one after another, unable to get up. Yi Qingluo raised her head, looked coldly at Yi Fengyu. "Shut up, let me see your courage as the Three Spring Sect's patriarch, don't let me down." After saying that, she didn't look at Yi Fengyu again. Carrying her injured body, she once again rushed into the group of black-robed men. Yi Qingluo was wearing a red robe. Yi Fengyu couldn't see the wound on her back, how much blood was flowing. But he knew Yi Qingluo's injury was definitely not shallow. It was him, he was the one who injured his sister. If his sister hadn't done it to save him, it was impossible for Big Sister to be ambushed by those people. Yi Fengyu clenched his fists tightly, the veins on his forehead bulging. In his ears it was as if Yi Qingluo's words were still ringing. "Don't disappoint me. Don't disappoint me. Don't disappoint me. Don't let me down." That was right. He could not let his sister down. He had already made up his mind that from now on, it would be his turn to protect his sister. But today, for the sake of someone who hurt her, she got hurt. From the moment Yi Fengru had hurt his sister, Yi Fengru was no longer his second brother. It was his enemy. He had said that he would protect his sister. "I want to be my sister's most solid support. No one is allowed to hurt my sister." Yi Fengyu's eyes burned with an intense desire to fight. The way he looked at Yi Fengru became ruthless and filled with killing intent. Yi Fengru was also taken aback by this look. Yi Fengru snorted disdainfully, "My good eighth brother, you can't stand seeing that little bastard injured? I say, don't tell me you like that little bastard?" Yi Fengyu didn't answer, the battle intent in his body continued to rise. "That's your sister." Chapter 2095. Luan, Yi Fengru didn't even have time to say it. Boom! A violent fluctuation of xianxia rushed towards Yi Fengru like a hot knife through butter. Yi Fengru was still teasing Yi Fengyu when he saw Yi Fengyu suddenly attacking him. That powerful xianxia was obviously trying to take his life. Yi Fengru's face changed and wanted to avoid it. But it was too late. The palm strike, filled with rage, landed heavily on Yi Fengru's chest. Yi Fengru was like a broken kite, flew out and fell heavily on the ground, spitting out blood. He stared at Yi Fengyu in disbelief. The boy who had always been a yes man actually dared to fight with him? Actually, really wanted to kill? "No one is allowed to speak ill of my sister." Yi Fengyu's angry voice was covered with ice. Anger, monstrous anger, burned in his heart. He couldn't wait to completely burn everything that hurt Yi Qingluo. Yi Fengru gritted his teeth, then suddenly let out a hearty laugh. "I just said a few words about that little bastard and you really want to take my life? And you still dare to say that you don't have any improper thoughts about that little bastard?" His eyes were scarlet and he couldn't stop laughing. "Yi Fengyu, that lowly bastard has a whole bunch of different men by her side. You alone aren't enough to enter her eyes, right?" Aha! Yi Fengru's laughter. It was extremely harsh, piercing the murderous intent in Yi Fengyu's eyes. He flipped his palm and a long sword unknowingly appeared in his palm. He rolled up a sword wave and gently waved it. The sword light was like a blooming firework, layer by layer, wave by wave rippled in the air. Yi Fengru's pupils contracted, the smile on his face also froze. That sword power followed the air, surged and shot straight, blocking all of Yi Fengru's escape routes. This is... Yi Fengru was terrified to the extreme and he kept shrinking back. Yi Fengyu's eyes were cold, murderous intent filled his eyes. The sword light in his hand crisscrossed, without any intention of mercy. Bang bang bang, boom boom boom, the sword power was full of power, the ground shook under the sword chi, a thin crack appeared. Ah! Yi Fengru let out a terrified scream. He had nowhere to run, nowhere to run. She could only close her eyes and scream in fear. The strong wind brushed against his face like a sharp blade, constantly cutting his face. His body felt like it was being swept up by the sword wave and was about to be devoured by it. But, after that powerful wave of chi swept past, Yi Fengru didn't feel the pain of being torn to shreds like he had imagined. He was overjoyed. Could it be that someone had come to save him? Yi Fengru's eyes snapped open, and he looked around with wild joy. The smile on his face froze again. There was no one around him. There was no so-called rescuer. He half knelt on the ground. The ground around him was densely packed with cracks like a spider web. It was the mark left by the sword wave. Yi Fengru didn't kill him. The feeling of thinking that he was going to die, but being rescued from the jaws of death instantly surged into his heart. Yi Fengru lay limp on the ground, gasping for breath. He was overjoyed. As expected, Yi Fengru couldn't bear to kill him. Yi Fengru, that silly boy, still had affection for the Yi family in his heart. He couldn't bear to and didn't dare. The feeling of surviving a disaster. And the feeling of being sure that Yi Fengru didn't dare to kill him. Chapter 2096. Yi Fengru, you are the one who is dirty, don't think that everyone is as dirty as you. The young man's immature voice was filled with a cold, murderous intent as he said it word by word. Yi Fengru was stunned as he raised his head stiffly and looked at the young man who was riding on the back of a black leopard with a long sword in his hand. The young man's aura was majestic, his navy blue brocade robe was fluttering in the strong wind. Yi Fengru suddenly had an ominous premonition spreading in his heart. Sister is right about one thing, a person's heart is dirty, whatever he sees is dirty. Yi Fengru said coldly, I want to verify the truth of this sentence. Yi Fengru, let me dig open your heart and see if your heart is dirty. Just as he finished his words, Yi Fengru's figure had already appeared in front of Yi Fengru. He raised his long sword and pointed it at Yi Fengru. Do you know why I didn't kill you now? Because I want to torture you. He said it very slowly, word by word, enunciated very clearly. The long sword in his hand, bit by bit, scratched Yi Fengru's skin. The cold touch faintly felt a stab of pain. There was a warm liquid seeping out from the stab of pain. Yi Fengru didn't dare to move as he looked at Yi Fengru in horror. He couldn't believe that this overbearing, devil-like young man in front of him, could it be that easily soft-hearted, silly and stupid Yi Fengru? It's him. Stimulated Yi Fengru's growth? There was no time for Yi Fengru to think of other ways to escape. Yi Fengru's torturing long sword had already fallen on his body. Powerless to resist. The pain was unbearable. After Yi Qingluo was injured, she fought more and more bravely. Out of the 100 over black-robed men, there were only 60 over people left. The ground was littered with corpses, blood flowing everywhere. The remaining 60 over people, the more they fought, the more terrified they became. At this moment, their hearts were filled with curses. How could this young lady be so abnormal? One person, just one person, she killed half of them. This young lady was as cunning as a loach. Over 100 people tried to catch her but still couldn't. Most importantly, the fan in the girl's hand was too strange and terrifying. In the blink of an eye, there would always be 1 or 2 people who fell stiffly to the ground. Even in death they still did not understand. How did they die? They finally understood why their lord had sent so many people to capture a 15-year-old girl. More than 60 people did not dare to act rashly. Yi Qingluo gripped her glower flame fan tightly as she scanned the surroundings vigilantly. That beautiful face that could topple cities was extremely pale. Beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. She tensed her body and emotions, not daring to relax in the slightest. In the eyes of those 60 over black-robed men, Yi Qingluo's expression was calm. Apparently she could still fight for another few hundred rounds. But Yi Qingluo herself knew. She was about to run out of energy. She was just a person with a mortal body. Not to mention that they were facing so many profounders from other planes. It was already incredible that she could hold on until now. She could not reveal the fact that she had exhausted all of her strength. She could not give the other party any chance to take advantage of her. 60 over black-robed men, bit by bit, narrowed the encirclement of Yi Qingluo. They exchanged a look. She could not drag on any longer. Chapter 2097. Yiqing Luo was indeed abnormal. But, after such a long battle, Yiqing Luo was more or less exhausted. They didn't believe it. They couldn't even deal with a 15-year-old young lady after so many years. Go. One of the black-robed men gave his order. 60 over black-robed men covered the sky as they charged forward. Yiqing Luo's heart tightened when she heard that word. She gripped the glower flame fan tightly as her eyes squinted, reflecting a cold, murderous intent. The profound chi in her body revolved wildly. The young lady's red dress was like a dancing butterfly. Between the fluttering wings, the layers of profound chi ripples in the air continued to spread to the surroundings. This wave of profound chi swept. Those 60 over black-robed men's expressions congealed. They were just about to retreat. However, the spreading Shen wave suddenly disappeared in an instant. They were stunned. Yiqing Luo's profound chi had started to become unstable? Could it be? Yiqing Luo couldn't hold on any longer? This knowledge made the black-robed men ecstatic. They immediately raised their swords and charged towards Yiqing Luo's direction. How could they possibly miss such a great opportunity? Clang. Those few black-robed men who charged forward had yet to get close to Yiqing Luo. They only felt a numbing sensation on their arms. Their weapons left their hands. Following that, they could only see a red shadow appearing in front of them. They heard the sound of a fan opening and closing. The next moment their bodies turned cold. After that they lost all feeling. But those black-robed men who charged towards Yiqing Luo saw it with their own eyes. Those few black-robed men who were in front. Inexplicably their limbs split. Blood splattered on their bodies. This scene made those black-robed men's faces revealed a horrified expression. This cruel method was done by this 15-year-old young lady? They didn't even see her make a move. As it turned out, the fluctuation of profound chi just now was caused by the sudden disappearance of chi. Yiqing Luo did it on purpose? Intentionally luring them to take the bait? Dozens of black-robed men became timid once again. It was a bloody scene. Even if it was them, they might not be able to do it expressionlessly. Yiqing Luo panted lightly as she quietly kept the silver threads back into the glower flame fan. She glanced at Yi Fengyu from the corner of her eyes. Seeing Yi Fengyu's current state as well as Yi Fengru lying in a pool of blood, she relaxed. From the looks of it, Yi Fengyu had completely transformed. As long as Yi Fengyu could pass this trial today, it would be of great help to his future growth. Yiqing Luo withdrew her gaze and no longer worried about her brother. She's deliberately mystifying us. Look at her hand. Suddenly one of the black-clothed men roared. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. Yiqing Luo's hand, which was holding the glower flame fan, was stained with traces of blood. It was a thin trail of blood. The silver threads were clearly exposed to their eyes. It was silver wire. Yiqing Luo made use of the silver threads to kill those black-robed men without anyone knowing. This knowledge gave the black-clothed people confidence. They looked at each other. Suddenly, a few black shadows scuttled towards Yiqing Luo. Following that, the other black-clothed men also dashed over quickly. They stared vigilantly at that strange fan in Yiqing Luo's hands. Stop. Suddenly, a soft but flat and emotionless voice resounded throughout the entire garden. This voice made the black-clothed men stop in their tracks. In the air there was a ding-dang-dang sound. When they fixed their eyes on it. Chapter 2098. The young lady's figure was petite, her head only reached Yiqing Luo's shoulder. Dressed in a pink long dress, a string of black bell bracelet on her wrist. Lolita's face, Lolita's appearance. But her pair of eyes were extremely sluggish, empty and lifeless. Shadow, they are very dangerous, stand behind me. Yiqing Luo immediately pressed on Mo Ying's shoulder. Only you came? Where are they? They are still behind. Mo Ying replied calmly, I sensed their presence so I came over first. Yiqing Luo's hand, which was pressing on Mo Ying's shoulder, stiffened. You? The corners of Mo Ying's lips suddenly twitched, although the smile was stiff. But Yiqing Luo could tell. Mo Ying was smiling. This was the second time Yiqing Luo saw a different expression on Mo Ying's face since the first time she met her. Although the smile was very stiff and awkward. But at least it was a smile. Not waiting for Yiqing Luo to regain her senses from this smile, Mo Ying had already turned her head and looked at those black-robed men who were frozen on the spot. Her face had already resumed its expressionless and stiff look. How dare you? Nirvana realm is a place where you can come. Mo Ying looked at the black-robed men blankly. The black-robed men trembled. The next moment all of them knelt on the ground. Island Sage. The black-robed men's forehead was pressed against the ground as they trembled. Island Sage? This group of black-robed men called Mou Ing as Island Sage? What was going on? After Mou Ing appeared, Yiqing Luo had some guesses in her heart. But when she saw this group of black-robed men really kneeling on the ground, being extremely respectful, Yiqing Luo was still stunned. Mou Ing was actually a big boss. And a super big boss. Island Sage, just by hearing this name she knew that he was absolutely a big shot. Why were there two of them beside her? They were all heaven-defying existences. Look, one Long Yunjian, that was a human dragon. Look at Xiao Jin, he was the Heaven Realm's Tian family's successor. Beside her. Which great god was there? Why did she feel that although she had always been the boss, but her actual status was the lowest? If Yiqing Luo's words were to be known by everyone, everyone would definitely roll their eyes and say, "You're the future empress, your status is miles ahead of us." Mou Ing tilted her head and looked at them blankly. "You still know that I am your island sage?" "Island sage, this is the island master's order, we also." The men in black wanted to cry but had no tears. If they had known that the person they were going to capture today was a friend of the island sage, they would not have come even if they were killed by the island master. The island sage was 1,000 times more terrifying than the island master. Mou Ing shook the bell in her hand. The crisp tinkling sounds were extremely pleasing to the ear. But in the ears of the black-clothed men, it sounded like a fatal sound. They covered their ears in horror and began to tremble. All of them kowtowed with all their might, desperately begging for mercy. However, Mou Ying's expression did not change at all. She just tilted her head and didn't move. If not for those lifeless eyelashes that occasionally fluttered a few times. Yiqing Luo really felt that the Mou Ing standing in front of her was an exquisitely crafted wooden puppet. Shadow, leave them alive. Yiqing Luo realized Mou Ying's way of doing things. Although she wasn't sure what effect the tinkling of the bell had on those black-clothed men. But Yiqing Luo was very clear. The bell continued ringing. Chapter 2099. Mou Ing turned her head sideways and took a look at Yiqing Luo. After a while, he slowly spat out a word, "Oh." As soon as he finished speaking, the ringing stopped. The black-clothed men who were howling in pain, kowtowing and rolling on the ground, collapsed into a pool of blood. The bell stopped ringing. The men in black immediately kowtowed, "Lord Island Sage, please spare us. Lord Island Sage, please spare us." Mou Ing ignored them. Instead, he moved his body away. Yiqing Luo walked out from behind her. Slowly he walked to the front of the men in black. "You are from the Godless Island." Yiqing Luo's voice was very calm. This wasn't a question but a statement. From the moment they shouted "Island Master," Yiqing Luo had already guessed their identities. Godless Island? What kind of power was this? Why did they have to team up with people related to her time and again to deal with her? The men in black kneeled on the ground and shivered. No one dared to speak. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly. When Mou Ing saw this, her tender little hands hugged Yiqing Luo's arm as she snorted coldly. This cold humph made Yiqing Luo unable to restrain her laughter. His face was calm and his eyes were empty. However, she did her best to pout her lips and put on an angry expression as she snorted coldly. She looked extremely adorable. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but pinched her cheek. Mou Ing raised her head in confusion. Her round, big and extremely beautiful eyes blinked. However, there was not the slightest bit of spirit in his eyes. Yiqing Luo sighed softly. She was clearly such a cute girl. On Mou Ying's body, just how many more secrets were hidden? Island Sage. When the black-robed men heard Mou Ying's cold snort, they trembled in fear. As soon as they spoke, Yiqing Luo's attention returned back to the black-robed men. He caught a glimpse of Yiqing Luo's expression. The man in black who was kneeling at the front responded quickly, "Yes, we are from Godless Island." This attitude made Yiqing Luo puzzled. On Godless Island. After all, it was the island master who had a higher status. Or was it Mou Ing, the island sage, who had a higher status? "Your island lord, what's the reason for you to come over?" Yiqing Luo cast aside all the other thoughts. The most important thing now was to understand Godless Island's intention. The black-clothed man was startled. Soon after, they looked at each other with troubled expressions. Yiqing Luo raised her brows. "Since you refuse to say, why not listen to me?" The men in black lowered their heads, not daring to speak. I've come into contact with the people from the Godless Island a few times. You have cooperated with the underworld forces and your target should be me. Now? He's using Yi Fengru to brazenly appear in front of the representatives of the Western continent's major powers. Clearly he has no intention of hiding his identity. Yi Qingluo paused for a moment as her eyes flashed past a thought-provoking deep meaning. Although Godless Island is the #1 evil force in the Nirvana realm, it is the #1 island in the Nirvana realm. However, Godless Island should also belong to a force outside the Nirvana realm. Establishing the island in the Nirvana realm was already a very bold move, and it was very likely that the slightest mistake would cause it to be destroyed by the Heaven Dao. Now, is Godless Island planning to participate in the Dark Forces plan so that the Heavenly Law historian will notice the existence of Godless Island? The black-robed men shook their heads hard. Their bodies kept on trembling as they took a careful look at Mo Ying by the side, before answering in a trembling voice, We don't know anything, we're only following orders. Chapter 2100. Per Island Lord's orders to cooperate with Yi Fengru to sabotage you. Inheriting Three Springs sect. The black-robed man replied with a trembling voice. Sabotage her inheriting Three Springs sect? What did her inheriting Three Springs sect have to do with Godless Island? Why did that old man want to sabotage Qinglu as Three Springs sect's patriarch? Mo Ying popped her little head out from behind Yi Qingluo and asked the question on her behalf. We don't know. The black-robed men shrunk their necks. Mo Ying sneered unhappily again. You don't know? We really don't know. Island Sage, you know Island Lord's character very well, how would he possibly tell us the reason? Moreover, Island Lord's thoughts, we don't dare to guess. The black-robed men were so scared that they almost peed their pants. In their hearts, they all begged the Island Sage, who had an unpredictable temperament, not to vent his anger on them. Mo Ying raised her wrist, her fingertips caressing the two furry little balls hanging on her shoulders. Her stiff and emotionless voice sounded faintly, since that's the case, there's no point in keeping you two. Island Sage, spare us. Island Sage, spare us. Ding ding dang dang. The black-robed men's pleading voices were suppressed by the crisp ringing of the bell. Just a moment later, those black-robed men who were begging for mercy hugged their heads and banged their heads on the ground continuously. Yi Qingluo pursed her pink lips, looking at the expressionless young lady who was shaking the bell in her hand. Her pink lips moved, but in the end she didn't say anything. She knew. Mo Ying was worried about something. Since Mo Ying didn't want her to know about those matters on Godless Island, she didn't ask. In just half an instant's time, these black-robed men all banged themselves to death on the ground. A thick blood stench filled the air. In the garden, other than the sounds created by Yi Fengyu and Yi Fengru, there were no other sounds. Yi Qingluo raised her head and looked towards Yi Fengyu's direction. This look made Yi Qingluo slightly surprised, because Yi Fengru was lying on the ground, so abused that he couldn't be recognized. Yi Fengru's robe had already turned into strips under Yi Fengyu's sword power. Not a single part of his body was intact. It was covered with scattered sword wounds. It was a ghastly sight. Blood covered Yi Fengru's entire body. Yi Fengru looked as if he had been soaked in blood. It was clear that Yi Fengyu was ruthless. He looked at the expressionless youth riding on the Xian's back, who only had eyes for Yi Fengru. Although this was a growth for Yi Fengyu. However, Yi Qingluo had never thought of cultivating him into a devil. Yi Fengyu's current state. It was no different from turning into a demon. Yi Qingluo took out 2 bottles from the profound phoenix ring and passed it to Mo Ying. He pointed at the representatives of the major forces around him, who were either unconscious or had their eyes wide open. Mo Ying understood and took the bottle of medicine to cure those people. Yi Qingluo took a step forward and walked towards Yi Fengyu's direction. Xiao Yu. Her voice was a little cold and her steps were extremely slow. Yi Qingluo could see it clearly. The young man's slender body stiffened when he heard her call. If you can still hear my voice, then turn around and look at me. Yi Qingluo said calmly. The young man's stiff body seemed to be hesitating. Chapter 2101. The youth's young and tender face was no longer as stern and sinister as before. A pair of black eyes blinked in panic and helplessness. He looked like a child who had yet to grow up. He had done something wrong and was standing there uneasily, waiting for his punishment. Through him, Yi Qingluo looked at the ground, at Yi Fengru who had long lost his human form. Yi Fengyu noticed her gaze. Subconsciously, he moved in front of Yi Fengru, trying to block Yi Qingluo's line of sight. Yi Qingluo looked at him indifferently. You don't want sister to see him? Yi Fengyu was silent for a long time, then nodded. Why? Yi Qingluo remained calm. Yi Fengyu lowered his eyes. His fingers, which were gripping the long sword, were so tightly clenched that his fingertips had turned white. She waited for a long time, but Yi Fengyu did not reply. Yi Qingluo muttered to herself, You don't want me to see you make Yi Fengru into this state? Are you afraid that I will be afraid of you? Yi Fengyu's pupils constricted and he didn't reply. Instead he lowered his head even more. Yi Qingluo slowly walked towards him. Yi Fengyu wanted to retreat. However, after Shiju saw its master, its feet stopped moving. If not for the fact that Yi Fengyu was still on its back. It was afraid that it would transform into a little black cat and pounce into its master's arms. Yi Qingluo stood in front of Shiju. She looked up at Yi Fengyu. Yi Fengyu lowered his head and coincidentally met Yi Qingluo's line of sight. There was an indescribable sense of panic in his heart. The sword in his hand fell to the ground in shock. Clang. The sound of the long sword falling to the ground was extremely crisp. The blood on the ground stained the sword. Yi Fengyu was at a loss of what to do. He cautiously glanced at Yi Qingluo's expression and wanted to get down from the seal's back to pick up the long sword. However, Shiju didn't give him a chance to get down. When those who were awake saw this, they couldn't help but admire Yi Qingluo even more. The scene of Yi Fengyu brutally beating up Yi Fengru was clearly witnessed by all of them. His aura was strong and majestic. It had the aura of a sect. But when facing Yi Qingluo, he was like an obedient little brother. The flames on his body were completely restrained. It was as if he had done something wrong and was caught by his elders. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the atmosphere between the two of them was a very normal sibling relationship. On the other side, Yi Qingluo had already walked over and bent over to pick up the long sword which was stained with blood. She took out a handkerchief and wiped the blood off the sword bit by bit. Without raising his head, he said, Little you, my hands are stained with a lot of blood. Many lives have been lost. I have also used many cruel methods to torture my enemies. She paused, and the hand that was wiping the sword also stopped. Are you afraid of me like this? I'm not afraid. Yi Fengyu replied without hesitation. As soon as the words came out, Yi Fengyu was stunned. He stared at Yi Qingluo in a daze with his eyes wide open. Suddenly he understood the reason why Yi Qingluo asked this question. His nervous and uneasy heart calmed down at this moment. Hearing Yi Fengyu's unhesitating reply, Yi Qingluo's lips curled into a faint smile. The amount of blood and lives I'm stained with is not something you can imagine. But you're not afraid of me like this then? You've merely taught a lesson to the scum who insulted me. Why would I be afraid of you and blame you? Hearing his sister's words, Yi Fengyu's eyes lit up. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.